Today I have the roller and a ring today, but you can use your ball instead of the ring. You can use a strap. For this first part, we'll start back onto our back, and I want you to kick one leg to the ceiling. You're gonna pull that leg in and shoulder shrug down. As we're stretching the back of the leg, I want you to focus on your breath. Breath is up high in the rib cage. Shoulders are shrugging down. And that lower leg is long and straight, but if you ever needed to, you could bend it if that felt better on the hips or the low back. And we're gonna drop the leg out to the side to open up the hips. Shoulders still shrugged down out of the ears. Pull in that ring, get a deeper stretch. When you bring the leg up, you're gonna cross over the center line, but still pull it in to get the deep hamstring stretch. Still good, feel it down into the right, or I guess the hip of your lifted leg. When you bring it right back to center, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Still lengthening the back of the neck, pulling the belly in. Remember with Pilates, the breath is up high in the rib cage, lateral rib cage breathing. The idea is to keep your abs tight and pulled in the whole class. Drop the leg out to the side to open up the hips. Still feel the inner thigh stretch as you're pulling in. Lengthen the lower leg too. Try not to grip into your neck, so keep the shoulders pulling down. And then bring the leg up and cross over the center line as you're pulling it in. Keep both hips squared off, facing the ceiling. As you're crossing over, make sure both hips stay down. Pull in a little deeper for one more deep breath. And then when you come back to center, we're gonna go ahead and hold the ring or ball between your hands. Bring both knees bent with feet flat on the floor. Your arms are straight to the ceiling, and you're gonna squeeze that ball or ring. If you don't have any props, you could just keep your hands by your side, but you're gonna rock the pelvis back so you feel the imprint, and then rock your pelvis forward so you feel that arch form in the low back. Rocking back and forth. Get those arms strong and straight, squeeze in the ring, pull the belly in deeper. Do one more, rocking back into imprint and then arching forward. And I want you to come right to neutral, right in the middle where we have hip bones and pubic bone level with each other and your neutral spine. Flex the upper spine up, you curl up, look into the belly, and hopefully the pelvis and lumbar spine did not move positions. Flexing the upper spine up and then resting down. So if you don't have any props, you could just reach your arms parallel with the floor under you and then resting back down. If you have that ball or ring, squeeze it tighter. We're gonna do one more, curl up and hold it. Now stay here in this flexion. We're still squeezing the ball or ring. Now we're only gonna move the arms. The arms are gonna come way back overhead and then right back towards the legs. You try to stay flexed up the whole time. Now think about the legs. You're pressing your feet towards the floor. Even the inner thighs are activated. You're also pulling up on the pelvic floor. Pull the belly in deeper. Do one more lift and lower the arms while you're squeezing the ring or ball. And then you get to rest everything back down. You can give your arms a little break if you need it. I want you to rock your pelvis back so you're in the imprint now. We're gonna go into the bridge. So lift the hips up, heeling your spine up. You're still pressing the toes into the mat and then rolling right back down until you rest. Take a deep breath in, exhale, lifting the hips. Hopefully those arms are strong and reaching, and then rolling down. If your arms are by your side, really press them downward into the floor. Lift the hips up, and we're just gonna hold this one a little longer. Press hard into the ring, get the hips a little higher, squeeze your glutes, press the toes into the mat, take one more deep breath, and then roll your spine all the way back down. So now we're gonna do like a combination of both of those exercises, I guess preps together. So with your low back pressing towards the floor, you're in an imprint. We're gonna flex the upper spine up, curl up, look into your belly. Then you're gonna rest down head and shoulders, reach those arms way overhead and lift the hips up into your bridge. As your spine rolls down, the upper spine flexes up, you look into your belly, reach those arms the whole time you're squeezing that ball or ring if you have it, and lifting the hips as the arms reach back. Rolling the spine down, curl up, look into the belly. Try not to grip into your neck, especially when those arms come way back overhead. Lift the hips, press the toes to the floor. Now just roll your spine down and return your arms to the ceiling. So if you have the ring or ball, you can relax the arms a bit, but just keep the ring or ball. Drop both knees to one side and stretch. And then we'll bring both knees up and over to the other side, or spine twist in the other direction. When you come back to center, we're gonna do toe taps, but if you have the ball or ring, put it between your ankles, and then your hands are gonna be down by your side with arms long. If you don't have the ball or ring, you just keep the legs together. Your hands are gonna be on your hips or pressing down into the floor. If they're on your hips, you're trying to feel neutral and keep that pelvis stationary as we do the toe taps. The legs are staying bent as they lower and lift, keeping that stiff 90-degree bend, hollow out the abdomen, press the back of the shoulders to the floor, and even lengthen the back of the neck. Pull the belly in a little deeper. Inhale as the legs lower. Exhale, lifting back up to tabletop. Squeeze that ring tighter. We'll do 2 more. Last one's always the hardest because I make you hold it. So try to get those feet low and hold it. Don't let the feet touch the floor. Now draw the navel in deeper. Pull up on the pelvic floor, press the shoulders down, and then bring the legs right back to tabletop. So we're gonna go into the 100. So if you have a ring, put your ankles on the inside of the ring just to change it up a bit. So now we're gonna work our abductors or outer thighs. If you have the ball, just keep squeezing the ball. We're gonna curl up, look into the belly, lengthen those legs out to straight and start pumping the arms. Inhaling for 5 counts, exhaling for 5. Keep trying to pull outward on the ring, like you're trying to separate the legs, make those abductors work harder. If you have the ball, squeeze it a little tighter. If your legs are just together, keep squeezing those inner thighs together. Now try to work the legs to a lower angle as long as you're not feeling stressed in the low back. Inhaling for 5 counts, exhaling for 5. Breath is up high in the rib cage. Every time you exhale, you're forcing every ounce of air out of the lungs. This is our last 10 count. Now, after you exhale, hold everything still, curl up higher, reach further, and then you can finally rest back down. So get rid of your props. You're gonna have one leg straight down onto the floor, the other leg straight to the ceiling. Hands are down by your side, and we start our circles. Inhale as you start, exhale as you finish. Hopefully your arms are working as they press downward into the mat. You're pulling the shoulder blades together. You're rolling through the hips, circling that leg without moving the pelvis. Do 1 more in this direction, then when you bring the leg up, flex both feet and go in the opposite direction, crossing over that center line as you pull the leg up. Longer legs. Still lengthen the back of the neck. You're not gripping into the neck. Tell those quads to work hard to keep the bend out of the knees. 1 more, and then when you bring that leg to the ceiling, grab onto the straight leg and pull it in for a stretch. Go ahead and rest down. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So start off with pointed feet and start your circle. Inhale as you start, exhale as you finish. Remember that lower leg is still a working leg. Arms are working, they're pressing downward into the floor. Breath is still high in the rib cage. Pull the belly in deeper, and when you bring that leg up, you're gonna flex both feet and go in the opposite direction. Trying to get as much range of motion out of the hip possible without moving the pelvis. This is so hard to keep that core tight, strong, and stable the whole time. This is your last circle. Bring that leg up, grab on, and pull it in for a stretch. Now both feet are flat onto the floor, your knees are bent. We're gonna do some more bridging, so start with the imprinted spine. Press the toes to the floor, arms are long, pressing down into the mat, and now lift the hips up to the ceiling. Hold the hips up high. You can just stay here in this position if you want, but if you can, we'll add the kicks to it. So one leg reaches up, lower down, kicking up, and lower down. Keeping the hips up high, fully extending that leg upward to straight. Make sure that lower leg is working so hard, pressing downward into the floor. You can just do 1 more on each leg. Now when both feet are down onto the mat, take a deep breath, pull up on the pelvic floor, and then roll all the way back down into an imprint. We're gonna do it again, but this time, elevate the heels to make the ankles, arches, and calves work harder. So keep the heels up off the mat, keep the ankles parallel too so they don't bow out. Lift the hips up and do the same kick. Really stretching that leg up to the ceiling. Remember, when you return the foot to the floor, you're only on the ball of the foot, trying to keep the heel lifted. Do one more kick on each leg, at least even up. And then when both feet are on the floor, try to keep the heels elevated as you roll the spine right back down into your rest. Go back to flat feet, or do one more set of bridging. This is the lift and lower while we hold the hips up into the bridge. So lifting up into that bridge again, kick one leg to the ceiling, keep that leg straight, lower it halfway, kick it back up, lower and lift. Think longer leg reaching out of the hip joint, keep the pelvis level. Go ahead and rest the foot to the floor, keep the hips up. Same thing on the other leg, lower and lift. Still breathing, pressing the shoulders down into the mat and sliding them down away from the ears. Last lower and lift. Rest both feet to the floor and hold it. Take a deep breath and then slowly roll back down into your rest. Go ahead and do a hip stretch, crossing one ankle over the opposite knee and pull it in. When you're ready, you're going to do the same thing on the other side. When you uncross the legs, you're going to rock yourself up to seated. When you're sitting on the floor, lengthen your legs straight out in front of you. You're going to flex the feet, grow tall, arms are reaching out in front. You can squeeze a ball or ring if you want, or you could just do the reaching arms. Now your upper spine flexes forward as you force the air out of the lungs, and then you're going to stack right back up to straight. Exhale as you go forward. Inhale, you grow tall. Trying to draw the navel in, pull up on the pelvic floor. Those arms are strong as they're reaching. You want that feeling of pulling your armpits towards your hips, even as you stretch the thoracic spine forward. We'll just do one more. And then when you come back up to a straight spine, draw the legs together so they squeeze together. If you have a prop in your hand, you keep squeezing it. You could do weights in the hands or just the reaching arms, because we're going to twist our spine, come back to center and twist. Reaching that arm back behind you if the arms are free. Good. Hollow out the abdomen, try to grow taller. Twisting a little further. Now the pelvis should not be moving, so those ankles are not shifting away from each other. Still tell the inner thighs to work hard to squeeze the legs together, even grow taller. Finish this last set, and when you come back to center, you're gonna hold it. And I want you to bend your knees so your feet are flat on the floor. We're just gonna do some half roll backs. So tuck the tailbone, fall back halfway into a C curve, and then pull right back up to seated. Inhale as you fall back. Exhale, pulling up. Squeeze the knees together, press the feet to the floor. Trying so hard not to grip into the neck. Come right back up and we'll stay up. Now we're gonna add a rotation. So as you fall, you twist. Then come back up, we'll go to the other side. Fall and twist. Reaching that arm back behind you. If you have the ball or ring, squeeze it a little tighter so the arms are still working hard. Remember to fall and twist at the same time with those knees still squeezing together. You want to finish up this last set, hopefully feel even. When you come back to center, face front, and scoot forward so you have enough space behind you for rolling like a ball. So your hands are now on your shins, your shoulders shrug down, your feet off the floor. You could just hold this start position if you don't want to do the rocking. But if you can, roll to your shoulders, then come right back up to balance. Inhale as you go back, exhale up. Draw the navel in deeper. Remember to shrug the shoulders down out of the ears. Just two more. And your last rock back. Now we are going to rock back to the floor, but stay down there on the floor because we're going to go into the ab series. So if you can, stay flexed up, looking into the belly. Hug one knee into your chest, the other leg lengthens away, and then you switch. Really stretching that leg out long, like you're reaching out of the hip joint. If you don't want to stay curled up, you can always rest head and shoulders to the floor. Remember not to grip into the neck. Bring both legs together, glue them together. Both legs reach forward as your arms extend back, and then you come back to center. Inhale as you open, exhale together at center. The legs are always together. As you reach those arms back, remember to keep the shoulders down. As the legs lengthen forward, make sure you're squeezing the glutes and pulling up on the pelvic floor. Pull the belly in deeper.
all to help protect the low back. You can do your last one. Now, when you come back into your little ball, we're going into scissor kicks. Remember, you don't have to stay curled up if you don't want to, and then switch. Pulling that straight leg in. If you can deepen the stretch, reach out through the heels. Good, using the strength in the arms to pull that leg in for a deeper stretch. Give yourself enough time to get that hamstring stretch. You can do one more lift on each leg, and then bring both legs to the ceiling and rest down head and shoulders. Your arms are pressing down into the floor, press the shoulders down too. You're gonna lower the legs and then lift them right back up. Now pay attention to the low back and your pelvis. There should be no movement in the pelvis or the lumbar spine as the legs lower and lift. Make sure you're drawing the navel in deeper, squeezing the glutes, lengthening the back of the neck, and hopefully you're not gripping into the neck. Narrow the waistline, pulling the belly in. Try and do two more. Inhaling as the legs lower. Exhale, lifting back up. This is our last one. And when the legs are up, bend them to tabletop. Fingers laced together behind your head. Curl up and look into the belly if you can. And go right into crisscross. Trying to keep elbows wide. Now try to curl up a little bit higher too, like you're reaching your armpit to the knee. Give yourself enough time to fully extend that leg outward to straight. You can do your last rotation on each side, and then when you come back to center, you get a rest. Lengthen the legs out onto the floor, reach your arms way back overhead and stretch. Now we're gonna move right into roll up and then hopefully roll over. So arms are straight to the ceiling. If you wanted to, you could squeeze your ring or ball between your hands or have weights in the hands. The weights in the hands actually makes the roll up a little easier. So we're gonna bring head and shoulders off the floor, come all the way up and stretch forward over the legs. Stack your spine up to straight and then roll back down until you rest. Arms to the ceiling. Make sure your ribs don't pop up when you rest your head down. You want to keep the ribs pulled in. Every time you stretch forward over the legs, you're trying to increase your flexibility and stretch a little deeper. The whole time you're pulling the belly in and pulling up on the pelvic floor. Focus on that breath now, up high in the rib cage. You're forcing every ounce of air out of the lungs, filling the rib cage when you stack up, and then rolling back down. Squeeze the legs together. Reaching a little further. We have one more roll up. Make it a good one. Try to stretch a little further over the legs to get the hamstring stretch while you're still squeezing the inner thighs together and then rolling back down. When you get down to the floor, get rid of the props if you have any, and then make sure there's enough room behind you so you're not going to hit anything with the legs. So we'll start off with a prep if you need it. Legs are straight to the ceiling, arms are down onto the floor. Just do a little hip lift and then rest down. Hips come up and then go back down. If you could work harder, bring those legs all the way up overhead so your legs are parallel with the floor underneath you, and then you roll your spine all the way back down until you rest. Not letting head move, not letting those shoulders curl up off the floor, and hopefully you're not gripping into the neck. Press the arms down into the mat. Every time you come up, try to peel up one vertebrae at a time, and then you roll down one at a time. Take breaks if you need it. Now the next two, we're gonna add jackknife to it. So legs come overhead. You can skip this part if you don't wanna do it. Try not to look left or right as well. We're gonna lift up onto your shoulder blades as you reach toes to the ceiling. Still squeeze those legs together and then roll down from there one vertebrae at a time. Not letting head and shoulders come up. We'll do one more if you can. Legs overhead and then reaching up. It's a little harder to talk during this one. Draw the navel in, still pull up on the pelvic floor, and then you can finally rest. Now keep the legs to the ceiling though. So this is, I guess, my resting position for a moment. We're gonna do our corkscrew. You're gonna pick the hips up a little and then draw that circle on the ceiling with the legs. Come back to center and then go in the opposite direction. Roll into the back of the pelvis, squeeze the inner thighs together. Try to keep those feet flexed. Makes the quads work a little harder and it stretches out the back of the legs a little more. Now you can gradually get this corkscrew a little bigger if you want, as long as the shoulders aren't coming up off the floor and you're not gripping into the neck. Back to center. Just do one more full set, squeezing the legs together. Now when you bring those legs right back to center, you can finally bend them and rest. So this one, we're just gonna roll over to our side, and let's do some shoulder mobility first before we go into the side leg series. Sorry, yes, side leg series, thinking of something else. We're gonna rest down, use that lower arm for neck support. If you have a pillow, you could do that too. But the top arm is reaching, and this is where we roll through the shoulder, visualizing that that arm is a hand on the clock. Circling down and around, really stretching way overhead. Hollow out the abdomen. Now you can rotate and look back when that arm comes behind you if that feels good. Reaching. And when you're ready, you're going to reverse the direction. You might feel a difference when you changed direction. The shoulder snags, go really slow through it. When you come back to face front, we do have to go to the other side, so you could just roll over to the other side. I'm gonna swing around this way. Use that lower arm for neck support. If you need a pillow, you could do that. Start circling that top arm. Feel free to add that rotation to it too if you did it on the other side. Trying to get as much range of motion out of the shoulder possible. So you can experiment with it. Maybe do one with the rotation, circling around, and then the next when you skip the rotation and only move the arm. When you're ready, you're going to reverse the direction. Try and do the same thing. Rotate, then not rotate. Meaning don't rotate your spine and then do rotate your spine. After you bring yourself right back to center, we're going to stay here, but you could stay all the way down using that lower arm for neck support and lengthen the legs to straight and go right into the side leg series. Just make sure you're wearing that imaginary corset or belt around your waist, pulling the belly in and trying to keep a straight line through your spine. But if you want to work harder, you could prop yourself up onto your elbow, legs forward for easier, legs back in line with your body for a little harder. The top hand could be on the floor for support. It could be behind your head. You could just balance in that lower elbow. Lots of options. Taking it a little easier today. If you want to, I usually always say this, but today I did it. Press into the ring or the ball too with that top arm if you want. Always be aware of that lower shoulder so you're not sinking in and getting lazy. Try to lift the waistline up. The top leg is lifting and lowering, pointing and flexing the foot. Now hold the leg at hip height, pointed foot, and draw little circles. Pulling the shoulder blades together. Tightening the lower leg. Now you're going to flex the foot and go in the opposite direction, reaching out through the heel. Longer leg. Now hold the leg at hip height and you're going to swing forward in front of you and then kicking back. Whenever you kick that leg back behind you, think about squeezing the glutes. Don't let that lower leg get lazy. It's still a working leg. You can do one more. And then when you're back at center, you're going to hold it. Now we're going to bring the legs back so you're in a straight line. Rest all the way down to the floor. You can still use that top arm pressing into your prop, or you can bring it over your hips. Either one is fine. Both legs are going to lift and lower. Exhale as you lift the legs. Squeeze the inner thighs together. Remember to point the feet. Pulling the belly in. Now lift and hold the legs up and just move the top leg. Don't let the lower leg fall. Still keep the shoulders down out of the ears. You can do one more, lift and lower, and then you get a rest back down. Now we'll go over to the other side and we'll start off propped up under your elbow if you did that on the other side, Otherwise, feel free to stay down. Press into your ring. Remember to position those legs. They're forward for a little bit easier, back for harder. Pointing and flexing. And into that coordination. Pointing as you lift, flexing the foot as you lower. When those legs meet together for that quick moment, activate the inner thighs. If you're up under your elbow, push the floor away to keep that shoulder strong. So you're staying lifted out of the shoulder. Still trying to narrow the waistline. Hopefully you're still breathing with breath up high in the rib cage. Now point the foot and draw little circles. Think longer leg reaching out of the hip, and your lower leg is still tight and strong. Go ahead and flex the foot and go in the opposite direction. Reaching out through the heel. Longer leg. Now you are going to keep the foot flexed and swing it forward as you take your deep breath, and then point the foot as you kick back. When you kick forward, try to give yourself the hamstring stretch, and then when you kick back, squeeze the glutes. That lower leg is still a tight, strong working leg. Still pulling the shoulder blades together. Staying strong and stable in your core. Try not to move anything in the upper body. After you bring the legs back to center, rest all the way down to the floor. You can still use your props if you want to. Otherwise, the top hand is hopefully over the hip to challenge your balance. Both legs are going to lift and lower as you squeeze them together. Or you're trying to stay in a long, straight line from top of the head down to your toes. Squeezing the inner thighs together. Exhaling as you lift. Now lift and hold the legs up and just move the top leg. Lifting and lowering. Do one more, and then you get to finally rest. Now you're going to roll onto your abdomen. When you're on your belly, we'll do our baby swan first. So elbows are tucked by your side, shoulders are shrugging down out of the ears. You're going to use your back to lift the rib cage up. You're not using the arms, and then you lower back down, lifting the rib cage and lower. The whole time your abs are tight and pulled in, and you're always pulling up on the pelvic floor. Do one more little swan lifting and then lower down. Now you will use your arms in the next one, but first start the motion using your back and then push the floor away with the arms. You come up and then you're going to lower all the way back down. Keep pulling the belly in, lifting up and then lower. The legs are still long and straight, but they're not lifting. Just do one more. And then you can lower all the way back down. So the next one, reach your arms to straight, legs stay straight, but now you're gonna lift everything up off the floor and then lower down. You don't have to do the upper body with this one. You could just keep the hands underneath your forehead for neck support and just lift the legs if you didn't want to add the upper body to it. Lifting the rib cage, keep those arms long and straight. Do one more, lift up and hold it. And now with holding this position, we go right into swimming. Remember, you could just do the leg motion. Keep reaching the arms long though, shoulders shrug down, narrow the waistline, pulling the belly in. Take another deep breath up high in the rib cage, and then you get to take a break. Now bring your hands underneath your forehead, bend both knees, squeeze the heels together, and lift both knees up and down. Exhale as you lift the knees. Remember, you're still pulling the belly in and shoulders stay out of the ears. We quickly forget about those. Pressing the heels together to make the inner thighs work harder. Do one more lift up, and then you get a rest. So we're lengthening the legs to straight. You're going to prop yourself up onto your elbows. So this one takes a little bit of coordination. Your hands are just together. They could be flat or making fists. But with this one, you don't want to sink into your shoulders. You're going to try to push the floor away and stay lifted as high as you can and keep your neck in neutral so you're not dropping into your chest. With this one, you could skip the upper body again and just rest down and focus on the legs lifting if this felt like too much compression in the low back. But while you're lifted like this extension in your upper spine, we're gonna try to hold the legs up. That's where it gets a little harder. So feel free to lower the upper body closer to the floor if you needed to, but remember to keep the neck in neutral. Now one leg is gonna bend twice and then you lengthen it. The other leg bends twice and lengthen. So really it's a kick, kick, lengthen, kick, kick, lengthen. Adding to the coordination, you point the foot on the first kick, you flex the foot on the second kick, and lengthen while you're trying to keep those legs lifted off the floor. So the leg that is not kicking still stays strong, active, working, and lifted. Hollow out the abdomen, shoulders shrug down out of the ears. Try to lift the rib cage a little higher if you can. Do one more on each side. Your last one. And then when you're ready, get a rest. We're gonna come up into a little child's pose stretch, rounding your spine towards the ceiling, C-curving. Now we're gonna stay kneeling on all fours. We're gonna go into a little flexion where you round your spine towards the ceiling, C-curving, and then you drop your rib cage down, extending. It's forehead and tailbone to the ceiling. Rounding your spine, feel those shoulder blades spread apart, and then extend, forehead and tailbone to the ceiling. Do one more deep breath. Draw the navel in deeper, push the floor away, and finish on that extension. When you do come back to your straight line, we're gonna keep those arms strong, shoulders down out of the ears, curl the toes under, and lift the knees about 2 inches off the floor. Remember to still focus on the upper back, feeling the shoulder blades spread apart, your neck stays in neutral. You could just stay here and hold, but if you can, add the leg lift. So bent leg swings up, lower down, kicking up, and lower. Hollow out the abdomen, keep pushing the floor away. Remember to squeeze the glutes as you lift the leg. Exhale up. Still pull the belly in. You have one more lift on each leg. And then you get a rest right back down. Good, give yourself a little break. You can go back into child's pose stretch if you want. So we're gonna go into leg pull, and then hopefully it'll go right into some side plank stuff. Remember, if you don't wanna do the pressure on the wrist, you could do all of this on your elbows. So with this, lift up to straight legs. You could just hold the plank. Remember, always come down to your elbows if you need to. Keep your neck in neutral so you're not dropping chin to your chest. You're gonna lift one leg, lower down. Lift the other, and lower. Hollow out the abdomen. Remember to squeeze the glutes when you lift that leg, and you're not lifting too high that the pelvis is changing position. So take breaks if you need it. If you can, we're gonna center one hand in the middle of the mat and turn your body away from that arm. So now when you're in the side plank, remember, come down to your knee if you need to, you're gonna lift and lower the top leg. Still breathing. Your last one. And now we got to center that lifted arm to the floor. So we can do the same thing on the other side. You open up away from that lower arm, away from the floor, and lift and lower the top leg. Now both arms are strong, that lower arm especially, pushing the floor away. Both legs stay straight, pulling the belly in. You can do one more, and then center yourself to face the mat. Bend your knees, you get a rest back down into a little child's pose stretch. Now you're gonna come to seated. When you're sitting on the floor, lengthen your legs to straight for saw, but really wide. Arms are reaching out to the side walls, grow tall, pull the belly in, and then twist towards one leg, round down and reach towards the toes. Come back up, and then we're gonna go to the other side. So you rotate, round down, stay rotated as you stack up, and then back to center. Exhaling and inhaling. Longer arms reaching away from center. Keep those legs long, straight, and active, so you're always reaching out through the heels. Pull the belly in. Finish up the last set, rotating as far as you can, and then right back up. When you face front, draw the legs together. Your legs will be straight, and your hands are gonna be back behind you. So now we're gonna do leg pull, where we face the ceiling, lifting the legs. You could just stay on the floor and do the leg lift, but if you can, lift those hips up and lift the leg. You could just hold the hip lift and skip the leg lifts if you don't wanna do it. Hopefully you're pushing the floor away, you're keeping your neck in neutral so you are looking upward towards the ceiling, but not jamming the chin up. Feel those quads working hard, hip flexors working hard to help lift the leg. Push the floor away with stronger arms. Just do one more on each side. And then when you drop your hips, you get a fold forward into a stretch. We're going into teaser next, so bend both knees and bring your hands to the back of the thighs. We're getting into it from a seated position. So fall back just halfway behind the sit bones. Go ahead and lift the legs to tabletop position. You can stay in this position the whole time. You can keep holding onto the legs the whole time. But if you can, let go. And then if you can, go to straight legs. You could keep holding on to the legs with the legs staying straight. Pull the belly in, shoulders stay down out of the ears. If you can challenge your balance, reach those arms up. And when you're ready, you can rest back down. So the next one, we're gonna add the leg lift. Kind of reminds me like leg pull when we were lowering and lifting the leg. So fall back, hands can stay here on the back of the thighs. We progress into this. You can make this a little easier by keeping the legs bent and lower, lift, and then do the other leg. And feel free to hold on to the back of the lifted leg if you needed to. Again, you could do that with straight legs, and you can keep your hands on the legs the whole time. If you could work harder, reach your arms and do the same leg lift. Hollow out the abdomen. Good. Arms next to your ears is so much harder in your balance. Do one more on each side. When you're back to center, you get a rest. And we are gonna stay seated. We're just moving right into mermaid. When you turn and face towards the long edge of your mat, you're in your Z sit, but feel free to have both legs straight or both legs crossing in style. Hand on the floor and stretch away from the feet. Make sure you're not jamming that lower shoulder into your ear, and then come back up and stretch over the feet. Now focus on the breath up high in the rib cage while you're narrowing your waistline, and then force in there out of the lungs. Fall over and hold so we can add the rotation. Twist and face the floor. Twist back to face front, and then back up. We'll do that one more time. Fall over on the inhale. Exhale, twist. Twisting back, and then lift. Now we're gonna swing the legs in the opposite direction. Hand on the floor, and then fall over for the stretch. Really just rocking your rib cage from side to side, flexing your spine laterally. Shoulders still stay down out of the ears. Always pull up on the pelvic floor. Fall over, we add the twist, so it feels like you're wringing there out of the lungs. Twisting back to face front, and then up. We got one more with the twist. Deep breath, exhale, twist. Facing front, and then coming back up. Now just sit with soles of the feet together so your knees are wide, and you lean into the legs for the stretch. Now we're gonna do another set of the bridging. I haven't used the roller yet at all, so I'll use it on this one. If you have a roller, you're gonna put it perpendicular with your mat, so it'll be underneath your feet. Otherwise, just have feet flat onto the floor. When you get down onto your mat, you're gonna find your imprint. So low back is pressing towards the floor, not hard, just kind of laying flat. Arms are strong by your side. We'll do a couple bridges, lifting the hips up, and then rolling right back down, one vertebrae at a time. So notice the instability with the roller underneath your feet. It wants to roll away, but you have to tell those hamstrings to work hard. Lift up and then hold it. Holding your hips up high, take a deep breath, pulling the belly in, press the arms into the mat, and then roll back down. Moving on to the single leg bridge, still starting with the imprinted spine. One leg is long and straight, so your thighs are parallel the whole time. Don't lift that leg straight to the ceiling. You want to think reaching outward towards the wall, and then lower down. Lifting the hips, and then lower down. Now try to keep your pelvis level so that we don't drop the lifted leg hip first. Trying to lower down even. We'll do one more. And then rolling back down. Go ahead and switch, same thing on the other side. Lifting the hips up, reaching out of the hip joint as you lengthen that leg, and then trying to roll down slow, one vertebrae at a time. Rolling down even, not one side of the pelvis quicker than the other. Make sure your arms are strong, pressing into the floor, pulling the belly in deeper, always pulling up on the pelvic floor. Already lost count, I think that was our fourth one. So if you, it's like my hamstrings, want it to be the fourth one if it wasn't. So your feet are flat on the roller if you have it. Otherwise, feet flat on the floor. Basically, we just get back into a bridge. But if you have the roller, you get to do this next challenge of moving to heels, then arches, without letting those hips fall. Keep them up. Do the same thing, moving to toes, then arches. So you have to flex that knee a little deeper. Makes the hamstrings cramp a little bit more. And when you're ready, you're gonna roll the spine right back down into your rest. Lengthen both legs to the ceiling for a stretch, pulling the legs in, and then you can finally rest. Let's bring yourself up to seated. When you're sitting, we're gonna go into one leg straight, one leg bent. Either one is fine. Sit tall, pull the belly in, and twist towards the bent leg. You're gonna stay twisted towards the bent leg as you fold into your straight leg. Try to lean down a little deeper. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. You're gonna come up and do a side bend stretch, but you're gonna keep that bent knee on the floor as you lift the hips up and stretch. Just a different variation of the side bend where we're a little bit more open up and you feel the stretch more in your abdomen. On those oblique stretch. When you rest back down, we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So one leg bent, one leg straight, sit tall, and rotate first. Try to grow taller. You're still breathing. You're gonna keep looking at the bent leg as you fold into the straight leg. Feeling that side stretch in your back. Should feel good, sink a little deeper. When you come up, you're gonna stretch the front side of your abdomen as you lift the hips, making that rainbow out of your body. Good, you get to rest right back down. Both legs are straight out in front of you. Reach your arms to the ceiling and then fold into both straight legs, trying to pull yourself in a little deeper. You can come all the way back up. Now, a little fun challenge, I think it's fun, some people don't, but we're gonna do this rocking and then hopefully popping up to standing. And then we're gonna do some hamstring stretches up there. If you know that you don't wanna do hamstring stretches, you can just kneel and do the kneeling lunges like we did last week. But the rocking, we just roll back, and then when you're ready, you cross your ankles and you pop yourself up to standing with no hands. That's the challenge, no hands. So when you're ready, rock back. You can come up, cross your ankles, and then pull yourself up to standing. You can always just stay on your knees. You don't have to come all the way up to standing. When you're standing at the back edge of your mat, just take 1 foot forward, 1 foot stays back. Make sure the feet are parallel, your spine is straight, and you're gonna hinge forward into the straight leg. So I'll show you the kneeling real quick if you didn't wanna do this. You just sink into this stretch, and then you shift back into this for the hamstring stretch. Either one is fine. So if you are staying with straight legs, flex that front foot to deepen the stretch. When you come back up, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Flat back, straight legs. Try to keep your hips squared off, facing forward. Pulling the belly in. Flex that front foot if you can. Sink into it a little deeper. Good, you can come all the way back up. You can stay standing. I'm just gonna do this kneeling just so you can see. You're gonna reach both arms to the ceiling and then you just arch back into an extension. Make sure you're squeezing the glutes and pulling the belly in. And then you can bring yourself to center and lower the arms. Shoulders come up to your ears and shoulders down. Inhale up, exhale down. Do one more, and then hopefully those shoulders stay down and back, pulling the shoulder blades together. So just keeping those muscles contract are gonna help strengthen them. And then you can do your neck rolls. In one direction, you do the neck rolls, in the opposite direction. But after that, you guys are all done. You did good.